It was an early morning in Ponyville. Twilight was at her castle to take care of some chores, since school was over for summer vacation. She had been looking forward to schools to be over for the summer, but they were not that done yet though. She had some school subjects to take care of. She was going to do some correcting some tests, and since the others were quite busy with their own work, so she had helped Spike. And normally that she would have asked Starlight to help, but Starlight wasn't at home at this time. In fact, she went home to see her father for some time, since they had been reconciled their differences over time. But during this time when Twilight was doing correcting some tests, she was wondering what about her friends, since they have been busy themselves lately. They, since Applejack had the farm to take care of, Rarity went to shop, and Fluttershy with taking care of animals and even helped Dr. Fauna with her vet clinic and sort of things. But was just one thing that they also had. All of them had their special sun pony, but Twilight wasn't having any. Even her Rarity had tried to set up her with some blind dates with some stallions she knows from Manhattan, Ponyville, and some other places. But Twilight has been so busy lately with school subjects, and she had no time for any dating, so she always declined. Even though that she is happy to see her friends happy, but she felt lonely in her heart. But she tried to act normally as happy. But Spike, he actually did know that she felt lonely. Because shortly after school was closed for the summer vacation, he had actually walked past her room, hearing her crying. And he didn't actually ask her about it, what's wrong, because she would try to brush it off like if something was wrong. She'd probably say, "Oh, I just had a bad nightmare." So he didn't ask her more about it. But since the summer vacation was had just started, and after that she had been taking care of most of her subjects from school, she decided maybe to go see her brother and sister-in-law Cadence in Crystal Empire for about a few days. But during the time, she had asked Spike if he can take care of the castle once she's gone, which he said yes. And he had even had asked some of her friends if they could maybe help her with some chores from time to time. And Applejack said that she could do that, but the day after that Twilight had left, Applejack came over to help Spike with some chores. She then had asked Spike, what is wrong with Twilight? She's seemed to be a little bit, you know, sad lately. You noticed that too? Yeah, I have, says Spike. She had been crying from time to time, even well in the morning, late night. Crying? She never mentioned that. Yeah, and I even hadn't asked her about it. I thought maybe she had a bad nightmare or something. She used to do that same when lived in Canterlot. Do you think this might be something about her ex-boyfriend she recently had? Probably, said Applejack. In fact, Twilight did actually have a boyfriend who lived in Baltimore. But they didn't see each other so often, due that she had her school to take care of and that she had been a princess, and her boyfriend worked as a musician. And they could only probably see each other once, maybe once or twice each month. And they tried to make it work out. But after a long time, though, Twilight realized this wouldn't work out. So she decided there was maybe it wasn't even worth it. And her boyfriend actually understood. And he really understood that since they were so far away from each other and they couldn't see each other so often. But Applejack, what can we do about it? I want her to be happy. Well, Rarity said that she had always declined all the offers she had. I don't know what to do, said Spider. Well, Sugar Cube, we can't force your Twilight to be with some pony unless she didn't want to be with one. Yeah, you're right, says Spike. But I do want her to be happy. There must be something we can do. You know, if Twilight figured out that we had tried to put up on another pony, she wouldn't be happy. She would probably get angry at us. Yeah, you might be right about that. And a few days later, Twilight came back home. And she still seems to be as normal. Like, she seems to be happy, but she wasn't really that. But shortly after she came back home, she started leaving the castle more often. And when she came back home, probably sometimes in the late afternoon or late evening, she seemed to be glowing up with happiness. And Spike was wondering if something was going on. He did actually ask her about it, but she didn't answer much directly what has happened. The only thing that she had is a good night or a good evening with somebody that she knows, friend of hers. So he asked which friend it was, but she didn't answer. So Spike then found out that she was actually having a boyfriend. Shortly that she came back home, she started dating this particular stallion, who was actually from Ponyville. And he was very kind to her. When her friends also found out, they were just happy that she may have found some pony to be with. But something was very different about this particular stallion. When Spike saw him alone in town, he was just walking around talking to some other ponies like a normal dude. But he didn't seem to be much wrong with him. But Spike had some suspicions about him. And his suspicions couldn't be much wrong because a few days later, he saw the boyfriend, Twilight, talking to this mare, but they were just talking, laughing, and even gave each other a hug before they left. Seems at first he thought maybe that he was cheating on her, but it later turns out that particular mare was actually an old friend of his. But she was already married, so he could not just go around dating a married mare behind Twilight's back. But Spike still couldn't get rid of the feeling that something was off. So, what did happen? Well, something was wrong with this particular stallion, according to Spike's meeting. After being dating for about 2 years, Twilight felt ready maybe to take the next step in their relationship. They had often talked about getting married one day and perhaps a family. And she was waiting for him to start asking her the question. But it seems that never going to happen, as though every one of her friends believed though. Because one time they saw, at least Fluttershy saw Twilight's boyfriend at a jewelry store. He was looking at some necklace, some rings, but he didn't buy anything. He just looked around, he just, he just looked at some jewelry. And he actually had been giving Twilight some gifts, some jewelry, a necklace before. So she thought maybe that he was just looking for something special for her. So she didn't pay much attention. But one day, when he was out of town, this mare, who was apparently was looking for him, and she saw Twilight with some friends. She asked her if she knew about the stallion, and Twilight said that she did, and that was actually her boyfriend. And this other mare said something that wouldn't surprise Twilight. She said that this stallion was actually her husband. Twilight did not believe it. Her boyfriend had been married all along, and they even had been talking about having a family one day, and she couldn't believe it. But she asked for proof, and the mayor she actually showed Twilight pictures with her boyfriend, with his own family, and then Twilight just lost it. How could he do it like that? So Twilight had asked the mayor if they could maybe confront them together, and the mayor actually said yes. She had some suspicions about her husband doing this, and she didn't blame Twilight for anything about that, because she was very much clueless about this. So only about the day later, the boyfriend returned, and when he came to the castle, he found Twilight in the library. She was just sitting there waiting for him, and just when he walked in, his wife stepped in from another room, and he was now cornered. They both asked him, why did he lie to them? Especially when he had been married for at least a few years and had a family with this other mare. And why he had been lying to her. She thought that he loved her. But the stallion said, oh, well, I did love you, but not anymore. After all this, I probably would never see you again. And not you either, because I'm leaving you. And you can take care of the kids by yourself. Bye. And he just left. Twilight was devastated. She didn't believe the boyfriend that she thought loved her only used her for his own gain for some purpose. After all this, Twilight didn't believe anything about the stallion did. And that was the last time she ever saw him. Her friends were very much devastated from her. They couldn't even believe it either. So Applejack and Fluttershy had suggested that maybe that she would go see Celestia for a few days, just to try to move on from this. And she did. But around at the same time when she got to Canterlot, she ran into Orion. Orion was actually a novelty from Canterlot, and he was an old friend of Celestia. And he was actually at the castle around the same time when she arrived. They start talking, and when he asked from Twilight how things has been going on for her lately, of course Twilight did mention about her ex-boyfriend did, and he just lost his mind. He just looked at her with a shocked face. He said, how could anyone do that to you? I mean, you were smart, kind, beautiful, and you shouldn't have been treated but like a I would not describe it, but he couldn't just treat you like that. And Twilight smiled and said, yeah, he did. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to see him. I don't know what to be with any point more. And then Ryan just asked if she wanted maybe to go out, just have something to eat, maybe lunch or dinner, just try to maybe move on from this. Of course, Twilight would have said no, but since he was very kind and she knows him very deep, much for at least for several years, so she said yes. They actually went for lunch the next day, and there Twilight they and she felt at least happy a bit. She wanted to be happy again. But this time she didn't want to rush into a new relationship with some pony just because all of this happened. And Orion did he actually understood that. He recently had ended a long-term relationship himself. He and his girlfriend had been together for about 5 years. And for about the last short 6 months they'd been together before they broke up, they didn't seem to have the same feelings toward each other anymore. So he decided maybe it wasn't worth to be together again. But after his first time with Fluttershy, with Twilight, he felt happy to be with some pony like her. And even after the first date they had, he asked her if she wanted maybe to go out again, maybe for a movies or just for a walk together or something. And she said actually yes, even that she wanted to take it slowly. Of course, they weren't officially a couple at the moment. They wanted to first go out on a few dates just to see how things work out. And even though when Fluttershy and the others was told about Twilight's new date and Hurley's possible boyfriend, when they asked who this stallion were, Twilight said it was Orion. And Rarity actually knew about him, that he's a very kind, very honest, and very trustworthy stallion to be with. And of course, even when Twilight was told about her friends that take it slowly, you just have been in a relationship with this bad boyfriend you had, and she agreed with that. She wanted to take it slowly. They normally just went out for lunch or dinner or just have a picnic or something like that, small things to do. But after they've been dating for about at least 2 months, when he asked her if she wanted to go out for a dance, and she said yes. And it was at that time when they decided to be an official couple. It didn't take long for all of her friends and family to realize that she had been dating Orion, and that they were all just happy. Even her friends they knew about it. They actually had just had hope, strong hopes, that this relationship could last longer and maybe be the right one for Twilight. And they were actually right though. Even for much hope from Twilight's case, she had really hoped that maybe Orion could be the one to be with. Even then, one day when she was in Camelot with Orion, suddenly she heard a voice behind her, and she turned around, and it was her ex-boyfriend, the one who cheated on her, who was married but now divorced. He actually walked up to her, asked her if she wanted to take him back. She had regret what he did, that he wanted to be with her, and that he wanted to be with her that since he wanted to marry her. He had realized after that, shortly after his divorce, that he thought maybe that his relationship with her was just something that just a test or some sort of experiment or something. But he realized then that he had actually fallen in love with her deeply. But Twilight just laughed at him and said that he didn't want to be with you. After what you did, goodbye. But he tried to convince her over and over. But shortly, sadly, it didn't even work. But then Orion talked to this particular stallion and said, look, she said no, and if she didn't want to be with you, just leave her alone. I am her boyfriend now, so please leave her alone. But when ex-boyfriend was told, but Orion told the ex-boyfriend, you should leave her alone. She doesn't even want to be with you. So please leave her alone and never talk to her ever again. And you both left. But the ex-boyfriend stood there angrily. He could not just let her go. And he planned to do something to get her back. trying to win her heart back. And within the next few days, when Twilight was back home, she started getting letters from Anonymous Way. And in the letters, there were pictures and a letter showing Orion with a few mares in across it from different places in Canterlot. And the note said, "How can you trust this stallion when he is cheating on you with other mares? These pictures are proof." Signed, Anonymous. And of course, Father Twilight didn't even believe it. Because when she saw the pictures, she immediately recognized every single mare. It was actually very few of them were some close friends to Orion, and one was actually his own cousin. So she actually didn't believe it. She took the letter and the pictures, and she even went outside. And what she didn't know though, her ex-boyfriend saw it from a distance, and he saw her looking at his pictures and then throw them up in a bowl and threw them in a trash can nearby and said, "What if this anonymous say those pictures not proof?" You hear that, anonymous? If you are in nearby, those pictures aren't any solid proof. I know though, I know these mares, so give your words try. And that made her ex-boyfriend even more angrier. So he tried to take the next step even further. He actually did took new pictures of other mares which what he believed Twilight didn't even know. And this time she actually saw those. There was actually 5 pictures and a note which said, quote, "Do you know any of these mares?" End quote, with a question mark. The 5 pictures showed different places in town in Canterlot. And of course, Twilight didn't know 3 of the mares, but the 2 of them were actually close friends to him. But when Orion came back to Ponyville for his visit for about a week later, she showed him the pictures when they were outside, hoping that this anonymous would be nearby. And of course, when Twilight said, "You know, Ryan, I have received this," and she showed them the pictures. "Where did you get this from?" "I have no idea who sent me them. There were some anonymous that a week earlier, some pony did the same thing, but I actually recognized all of them." Wait, some pony gave you a letter with pictures with me and Madame Bears? For what purpose? I believe that this particular stallion or who it is trying to make me jealous and trying to break up with you. Because the first time I get the pictures, I recognize them immediately. Well, all friends of yours and your cousin. But this time I saw 2 of these mares are your old friends, but the 3 others I don't know. Who are they? And he then looked at the pictures. Huh, that is actually very interesting idea. But these 3 is actually old friends of mine as well. You never met them because they both live, but they actually live in Manhattan. They came by Cantlot about a week ago to visit me. That's all. And I trust you. But at the same time, the ex-boyfriend heard about this, and that made him even more furious, and he felt humiliated. He felt being just played dumb. But then, only the next day, there was another letter to Twilight. It said, "Dear Twilight, how can you be with this stallion, who has been cheating on you? He has been cheating with all those mares and probably with this one, and showed another picture. Do you recognize her? End quote. And this one was something that Pony Twilight did know. In fact, it was actually Lyra Heartstrings. This was getting enough. Twilight and Orion were getting enough of this. So the next day, when they was waiting, when Twilight said, "This mayor or not anonymous, I know her, and she lives here in Ponyville, and she's my friend. She is already married with another mayor, so you cannot believe I will fall for this again. We will find out who you are. Trust me, we will." And the next day, at the early morning, around 4 to 5 a.m., Twilight and Orion was waiting outside the door, waiting to see who this particular pony were. When they heard some sounds outside, they quickly opened the door and they caught him. They were her ex-boyfriend. He was very surprised that they actually saw him. Before he can even do anything, Orion said, "I can't believe you actually tried to make her jealous and believe me to be with you. How dumb can you even be?" "What?" he said back. "She belongs to me. I love her. She doesn't even belong to you. She doesn't even love you. How can she be with somebody when you treated her like you did? You were already married, and now you're even not married anymore. But how can you believe that she would be with you? Now, leave town and never come back. With sweet Celestia as my witness, she will probably send you to prison, or perhaps even moon for 100 years." Even though both Orion and Twilight knew Celestia would never do that. But the ex-boyfriend actually believed if he didn't stop, he would probably get some punishment that he would regret. So, the ex-boyfriend left town the same day to know where and know what to know what he ends up with. And Twilight, she could not have been happier and proud that her new boyfriend Orion stood up, protected her. And that meant Orion was her soulmate. After all this event, she had actually told Celestia, Luna, or all her friends and family all about this. And they were very well surprised how her ex-boyfriend did so crazy to do this for just to be with her. But they all surprised enough to say, "Orion is my soulmate." And after she said that, even they had just been together for less than over a few months, Orion knew she was the one for her. Then he actually asked her to marry her and marry him, which she said yes, and it was beyond any of her friends could imagine. She was actually the very first of her friends to be married, but she was happy to that have found someone to be with, especially not to be a pony like her ex-boyfriend. Her ex-boyfriend, he was not even invited to the wedding though, and he was never been at. But she was very happy to be married with her new boyfriend, Orion. Even at the wedding, both were very excited to be married. Even at the party though, there was a lot of talking about the ex-boyfriend, but Twilight said, "Please don't talk about him. His past history." "Alright," said the others. And Twilight and Orion never have been so happier to be together. And for Orion and Twilight, they actually went to a small island outside Ponyville to be for a honeymoon, and it was a great time. But 4 years later, Twilight had been feeling a bit ill. She thought maybe something was serious. But when she talked to the doctor, she found out she was pregnant. And she was going to have a baby girl. Orion, He was so excited to be a parent. And shortly after a few months, they had a baby girl, and only 5 years later, they had a son. Both Orion and Twilight could not have been happier to be with the one they loved the most. After what has happened in the past with Twilight's ex-boyfriend, after when he did, she didn't believe that she would ever find her true love and perhaps be happier again. But to her relief, when she met Orion, when she went to see Celestia, she felt happy that Orion was the one to be with. And for Orion, he could have never been happier to be with Twilight since she was the most beautiful mare he had ever seen. And after what her ex-boyfriend tried to do to make her leave him to be with him instead, he could not have even been more proud for that Twilight never would fall for their tricks. That made him believe Twilight was his soulmate as ever the single day since they met. And that's how Twilight and Ryan for their true love got a big family. The end.